Hello, everyone. Great being here. Welcome to the Asia Berlin Summit. I have the pleasure to sit today with Florian and Anna, and myself. I will shortly introduce all of us. The panel that we're starting is on metaverse and creativity. So we will have like a 20 minutes conversation on understanding what's the metaverse, what are the values around digital community, and what's the future of the metaverse. So Anna is the CEO and co-founder of UNA, B2B SaaS multiverse platform. And Florian is a serial entrepreneur with 10 years building blockchain application and with heavy data background, and is currently building an open source metaverse. So welcome on stage. I will kindly ask you to introduce your projects.
Okay, should I start? Okay, hello, I'm Anna. Thanks for the invitation. I was a designer for over 15 years. I had my own fashion label and I worked also in Zalando as a stylist, and then I decided I don't want to work more as a designer in this industry like we work, and it's all manual, almost not digital. Only 20% of the companies are working holistic digitally. So I started to learn coding. I started to program a software which transformed sports data into designs. I thought it's nice to have, but I wanted to change the back end of our industry. So we founded UNA. We built research groups to have a look how artificial intelligence can do that. And then we kept going now with transforming 2D designs into 3D designs, which is very important for the metaverse, because if not, we cannot enter. And working with brands like Gary Weber, Vaude, and of course, my goal is to change the big players and to change the back end and also the way how they sell and the way how they produce. I mean, in this case, product creation in digital wise and also digitally producing and entering in new revenue streams thanks to metaverse we have now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is I can talk very loud. It's not a problem without a microphone. Shall I just here we go. That works fine. So yeah, thanks a lot for having me as well. My name is Florian Krüger, like you said. Thanks for the introduction. We set out. So I have a background in business and then a second background in business IT management. From Boston, where I then also now chair the International Society of Chief Data Officers in Europe for quite some time. And as such, you get automatically exposed to the whole blockchain topic, to crypto, to all these areas. And since the metaverse is now basically the new internet, so explain the metaverse in 30 seconds. It's a bit, it's not a TikTok thing, right? You need a little bit more time to explain it properly. But effectively, we set out on that journey because we said, we've been around in 2000. We've seen the errors being made already in the 2000s when, you know, the big data players then came in from the US and took over and left us with a whole lot of shenanigans here in Europe. And you know, all the usual challenges that arose from that, including fake news and what have you. And we said, we can do this better. We're going to create an open community. We're going to create an open source solution that fits really well with the whole decentralized ethos, where you have different value streams, different value chains, different kind of accountability. And that's why we set out 6 months ago and started the race 2 months ago. So we're right now in a, we're in a, not just pre-seed, we're in a proper seed stage right now, and we're investing a lot in technology, in the building of communities, and yeah, that's where we currently are.
Awesome, thank you, Florian and Anna. Shortly, because I forgot to introduce myself at the beginning, I'm Gianluca, and I run a Web3 engineering studio between Berlin, Lisbon, and Zurich. And for the last 2 years, I've been curating digital art exhibition. So we've been experimenting a lot with we've tried like physical exhibition, but also digital exhibitions. We've experimented with different metaverses. We've seen like in the last 2 years exploding many different platforms, many different communities jumping on different platforms and running different events. So the metaverse is, as you mentioned, Florian, is a very old topic in a way that we had The Sims and other like games where you can just explore around. Habbo, there are like 10 years ago already a lot of different applications. So now like we're seeing that there are more and more platforms. I would like to ask you, what's your take on the future of the metaverse? Meaning, is it going to be just one main platform, or is it going to be one platform that is interoperable and communicates with all the other, or we're going to have different islands and silos where people can navigate through?
Do you want me to start? Because you also have an opinion probably on that. No, I think first of all, it is the metaverse, not the metaverses, right? There is not a plural. There's not multiple metaverses. That's rubbish. There's also not multiple internets, right? There's one internet, there's one metaverse. There's various metaverse applications. And the challenge right now that you have is very similar to the challenge you had in 2000s when you had the AOLs of this world come and try to do market grab, land grab, and try to be the proprietary solution providers that put you in a silo. We have the same thing right now, even with Decentraland, Sandbox, and the usual suspects. You have always people that try to get you invest into their solution. And I think the answer to your question, how it's going to be solved, in my opinion, is going to be on a protocol layer, where you have one common denominator that sits on the bottom that is interoperable, and then you have your various applications that sit on top, and the ones that will be interoperable and will allow for transferability of assets and of people and make it easy for people to go from A to B to Z, depending on what they want, whether they want something that is pixel streaming, looks like real life, or whether they want something that's just good enough for that business application, the business meeting that they have. But that protocol layer will solve it, and the applications will need to then fall into place in order to work, right? And that needs to be in open source standards and interoperable, transferable, in my opinion.
I would have said the same, and I think there will be different applications for different themes, for example, fashion or whatever, and it will be like a very multi-player background. It will be like now with the internet, it will be with metaverse, but with different topics.
For fashion, you would want to have something Unreal pixel streaming that looks really cool, right?
Yeah.
On the business side, you don't need that heavy load. You don't want to download something.
Yeah. Also, avatars for fashion, you need special avatars. We are testing now different companies, but you wouldn't need that for business or for cars or whatever. Yeah.
Right.
So then every application will have his own platform, and it will have his own community, right? My question, and then is very challenging to nurture a digital community, like we've seen in the last 10 years with the era of social media, and we've seen like certain practices, but I believe that now moving to more decentralized approach and moving like to metaverse interaction, digital interaction, this is changing. So how are you tackling this challenge? How do you grow your digital online community, and where do you see the differences from the last 10 years in running it?
I see it also theme-wise. We, for example, creating our community around fashion, big companies, innovators, startups in fashion. We bring everybody together. We founded Universe, bringing like a metaverse application to them to test, to educate them. So we're building like the fashion metaverse community, for example. So
you're basically creating fan clubs of sorts, right? I think the main error that most metaverse application providers currently made is that they were designed as backwards. They were basically designed for businesses. But I think the way you need to design those things is you need to create a social fabric, an area of common interest, for example. Say, for example, something out of the arts and culture area. Then you need to think about what really attracts people. Say, for example, as a next step, education, that you then educate people, that you allow them to understand how that works, that they can design their own clothes, that they get certain skills that they will require for the metaverse. Then you focus on the inherent motivation of the individuals, of people, right? So they want to meet somewhere, they maybe want to have a family gathering, they want to have very normal things which they don't want to code, they don't want to program something, they just want to go and click somewhere, and it needs to be super easy. And once you've got that, then you have a community, then you got traction and traffic, and that's an organic thing. And then you can start thinking about how you then include the business, the bigger business. But most companies did it the other way around. They first approached businesses, and then they were wondering why their spaces were empty.
Yeah, but I also think it's not right now. We have like the C-level of the companies have their community, and every part of the society they have their community. But I think we should mix it up, and that's why we are trying to bring everybody for the space in one community.
Yeah. Which is super important.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Yeah, it's super interesting that they take first business and then community, or community and then business. We're also seeing in the last years the rise of DAOs and decentralized autonomous organization that so pretty much collaborating on creating the same incentives and organizing individuals towards a common goal. And we've seen also NFT communities, right? So we've seen many projects launching their own NFT collection, and whoever has this NFT badge then is part of this community. Do you have a take on this approach about the NFT part? So seeing NFT as a connection with the metaverse, as a community membership, or do you see just an art approach?
I can talk about it forever.
Me too.
It's okay if I just start. I think non-fungible tokens, they were super overhyped, right? And then you saw this Bored Ape monkey crap that went belly up because there were a bunch of Nazis, effectively. That didn't work out very well, and that actually did huge harm, right? And luckily that hype died down a little bit, and now it's become more realistic. I think NFTs are super relevant, and they're super important in order to allow creators to continuously tap into the value chains, where they usually only were able to sell a song, a picture, a design once. They're now able to actually take ongoing royalty, so really making the big studios, taking the middleman out, making the big studios irrelevant to a certain extent, just in the help of the creation, the minting and that stuff. So I think they're super, super important and relevant, but they've been overhyped, and I think now we're getting into that, that when you look at that hype cycle, now we're getting through the valley of despair, we're getting to the real adoption and the real use cases.
Yeah, it's actually also a sustainable importance for our industry. I mean, we are in the beginning, of course, energy and everything, and we have to count that. But for our industries, like they create one digital sign and they can sell it 1,000 times, and they have new revenue streams, which is not physical and wasting water and materials and chemistry.
Taking on the revenue stream part, right? And coming back to businesses, building on the metaverse and integrating communities, we're seeing also a different approach for Web3 businesses running their business, right? Because it's not anymore revenue oriented. It's probably like there are new values coming in, new principles coming in. So maybe, Florian, I wonder, like in building an open source metaverse, how do you plan to sustain the operational part of the business?
That gets very technical very quick, right? Then you're talking about market making, you're talking about OTCs, you're talking about payment rails, you're talking about financial mechanics from the old world blended together with financial mechanics from the new world that then work and basically run the underlying system, right? Without actually interfering with the business economics of the top level of the applications themselves. So you basically create an open source community that works in decentralized fashion via the DAO, that then is supported by traditional and modern financial mechanisms blended together. Mm-hmm. We can, again, talk about that at length, but I think that's pretty boring for 90% of the people.
Yeah, revenue streams.
Sorry?
Revenue streams.
No, maybe also looking at the coming back to the community aspect and the values part. Anna, in your community, what are the main values you're bringing to grow and nurture your digital community, and what are the channels that you're using as well?
Well, we working with bigger companies. We are not using Discord because they didn't arrive yet. But we see we have to bring them from Web 2 to Web 3. It's a lot of education. But our importance is that they see the value, that they see that it's more sustainable, that they see that are new revenue streams than they had before. That's the revolution for our industry, actually. Can be more profitable with less waste. Yes, and the value is for us to bring everybody together. The C-level of the companies, the innovators, the creators, students, startups, everybody together and talking. And even we're looking now, we have these rooms now for conferences, but we're looking now for different rooms for conferences, more like for being together and having network and talking. Yeah.
So of course it's important to have real clients with real use cases. You're absolutely right. So that fuels the whole thing. Otherwise, it doesn't work. But the nice thing is now we can, you know, the stuff that we've been talking about, I don't know, 15 years ago, prosumers, co-creation, you know, creating different value streams. It's not just value streams anymore. It's value spheres. It's multidimensional, right? And it's actually not just down to a company, but everyone can basically become their own Web3 endeavor, right? And you can recreate things like the cottage industry in the UK, which used to be a very distributed set of multiple entrepreneurs that then started to work together and worked well together, right? You can recreate that digitally through the use of IoT, 3D printing, open source access to data and all these things, right? So now it's coming, all of it is coming together. It's got this label of metaverse right now, but it's actually starting to really work well.
Yeah, and in the metaverse is now allowing creators to have infinite possibilities, right? The creativity aspect of pretty much inviting artists or any kind of creator to express themselves and have so many technologies that they can plug and express through by creating art or by bringing up a new kind of concept and expressing them in new ways. How are you supporting in the future with your vision the creativity, like the empowering creators?
Of course, I mean, and what I also believe that small creators in Web 2, for example, they wouldn't have a chance. They can have a chance and they can be successful in Web 3. And even I think that all the status of the companies now, it will change. You will have a change and small creators can be more successful than bigger fashion companies in our industry. And this is amazing.
So to answer that question as well, how do you do this, right? This is all about inclusion. The biggest challenge that we're currently facing is that 3D immersive tech is still very high tech. So therefore you sometimes need a lot of gear. You need VR glasses and stuff. So if you talk about other countries, other areas, and how you actually include them as well, because you got huge talent in Asia and Africa and other places, right? That's currently untapped and that doesn't always have access to the metaverse because they don't have the technology. The answer to your question is you have to make it as darn easy as possible, as low code, no code as possible, and low bandwidth, simple computing, no power in the GPUs. Right, so it's a technology problem right now. I don't know whether everyone's going to be on Starlink at some point in time for internet access or something like that. But that I think is the key, right? As computing power increases and gets less and less expensive, we'll be more and more inclusive, hopefully, and be able to then tap into that global community of talent.
So, thinking about really the future, do you foresee people walking like with their AR glasses, or do you foresee like, I don't know, people in their home like with their VR glasses interacting with their friends? What do you think is the main technological, like the most dominant technology in the 5 years time? What's your take? It's just brainstorming on.
I would like to have VR classes which are very small and like normal classes, then I can imagine that we can use it. We tried it already, we're working with that since 2017. We tried different things, right now it's not working. We are more going for augmented reality. It's easier to blend both worlds, but that would be my vision if every classes could have the possibility to enter wherever you want.
On the business side, I think AR is pretty cool because you can then just basically blend physical and virtual reality together, right? I think that the biggest innovation will happen hopefully around personal data though, and privacy, right, and security on that level. And if you're able to then actually move around in real life or in virtual life and to have, through a combination of public-private keys, the possibility to define exactly what you're going to share with whom and how and why and when, and are also able to then monetize on that potentially if you want, right? That to me would be the biggest innovation even before AR, VR, XR, etc.
Yeah, I definitely foresee public social layer of augmented information that will pop up. So pretty much we will be able to plug in. I mean, there are already some experiments of companies that are placing advertisement on the moon, right? They're geolocalized on the Eiffel Tower, some advertisement, but they run their own layer. So the question is when we will get to a public social layer, like how do we control the displaying information? So we're going to walk out, and if we do not manage to curate the public layer, we will be overwhelmed with information and pop-ups from different companies. So coming back to this decentralization aspect, right? Because if one company takes control of this public layer, then the company will decide what information we will be seeing with our AR glasses. In a public, like in a decentralized way, it needs coordination, though. So my question is, how do we, like we've mentioned DAOs already, but what are the best tools to coordinate and incentivize communities right now?
Good question.
No, that's the million-dollar question. Absolutely right. There is no DAO out there currently that's working.
No.
Right. So not a single one. The idea is fantastic. Give the power back to the people. Let them coordinate themselves, organize themselves. Well, reality is that not everybody is fit to actually, have an opinion in a system that is rather complex, because again, it's not a 30-second problem, right? It's a problem that you really need to think through. It's a very deep philosophical questions, and like accountability and who's allowed to decide and those kinds of things, right? And it'll be, I think, still 3 to 5 years before we see the first DAOs working properly, right? That would then be the answer, I think, to a part of that. And in the meantime, we have to see what the rest of the world does in the political systems and where they put us with fake news, deep fakes, and what have you, and how this is going to develop, right? And then, how we can take control back from our own data. And I think that's super important, because if that's all in Meta's hands at some point in time, then we're screwed anyway.
So it seems that innovation from in the metaverse field will probably first come from corporation rather than from community itself, because I see that there's a big corporate side that is, of course, investing a lot in research and development and creating AR glasses and creating layers and running servers to run all this information. And they see the open source community, the decentralized community that can go way faster, but there's a coordination problem to get there. Do you agree with this statement?
Kind of, yes.
I think it'll be use cases like yours, like fan clubs, groups, use cases.
Education clubs or something like that.
Yeah, that will create their own communities that will then bond together and create that community, that bigger community. I think that's going to be super valuable. I don't think that we're going to see the bunch of innovation from the big corporates. I don't think so. They'll always try to control and manage it, rather than distribute authority and give it over to the decentralized system. And I think it's going to be super important that we manage that, and we're intending to manage those and coordinate those groups so that they can actually then bond together and create a better future.